Awesome. Hi, John. Nice to meet you.
Hey Zach, how are you? It looks like you're on our set. You look like you're in a cabin.
I thank you. I strive for that motif. Um,
So do I, clearly.
yeah, I love it. So let's hop right in so I can use my time wisely, right?
Sure.
Love the movie, first of all. And
Okay.
I did want to ask, it's set at this conversion camp, right? And so what made you think, or what made inspired you to use that as the setting?
Well, it was sort of a long, it was a long journey getting there. It didn't start conversion camp. It started with wanting to write something about horror and gender. Because as you probably know, horror cinema has a really complicated relationship with gender and sexual identification. And when I was growing up, queer characters mostly didn't exist on screen. Or if they did, in horror movies, they were victims, or they were jokes, or they were killers, but they were never the hero. There was never the character you rooted for. And as a kid, I missed that. I felt that lack. And I've always wanted to write something about it. I've always wanted to write the movie I wish I had seen when I was 12. And so when COVID happened, suddenly myself and every writer I know suddenly had a chance to write something for themselves, like from the heart. And so I decided to write this. And I'd met some kids who'd gone through conversion therapy in the past, and their stories really stayed with me about what that experience was like. So it seemed very natural to me to set a horror movie there where the greatest horror is not necessarily the masked killer, but actually what's going on in the conversion camp.
Absolutely. It was a roller coaster of emotion from beginning to end, I will say. Just not knowing who to root for, what to root for, where we were going with it. And obviously it's they slash them, and it's kind of in the title. It's a slasher film. What made you decide that genre versus, say, a drama, comedy, any other type of genre?
Because it's horror is my favorite genre, and it's a popular genre. I could have written a very serious little indie movie on this subject, but I'm a popular writer. I'm a popular. That's what I do. And I write for audiences. To appeal to audiences, and I love horror movies. And to take the most reviled of all horror movie genres, the slasher movie, and use it for the angels seemed to me a wonderful idea. And so every trope of the slasher movie, from like it's the camp in the dark woods, it's the killer with the mask, every part of that we use, and then I hope we subvert it in an interesting way to tell a story that is about queer empowerment of all things in a slasher movie.
Absolutely. And it landed for sure. And so it was really refreshing watching with a queer lens to see queer characters played by queer actors, right?
Yeah.
How, just personally, how important was that for you? Obviously, you mentioned making the movie that you wish you had. This is the movie that I think a lot of people wish they had because it's people playing the people that they're playing, right?
Yeah, that was hugely important. It's a movie about the power of belief in yourself and protecting your self-identity and proclaiming with glory who you are. So it was important to me that those seven actors could embody that. And so I wanted LGBTQ plus actors entirely who associated in some way with those roles. And it was an exhaustive search. I said to Peacock and Blumhouse very early on, casting is going to take a while because these seven faces are going to make this movie. They're the beating heart of this movie. And we need to find people who are representative both of themselves and of the characters. And I must say the actors were incredibly generous with me because I'm not non-binary, I'm not trans, but characters are. So the actors were very straightforward with me about talking about language, about issues, about things they'd experienced that were either like the character or unlike the character. So there is a wonderful frisson of reality amongst those seven it was joyous to watch on set because they were so proud of the story they got to tell. And I think that comes through in the movie.
It really does. As you're saying that, I'm thinking back to whenever I watched it and just how it didn't come across as kitschy or
Yeah.
overacting. It came across as so authentic, even in, like you said, a genre like slasher horror.
Yeah.
And so, without giving anything away or naming names, we've got some sex scenes in this film,
Yeah.
right? And again, watching through a queer lens, there's a lot of conversation, I think, going on in the media today with more queer film and art just being made and on the mainstream level, and how we all kind of grew up, like you said, we grew up seeing queer people depicted in particular ways, and we are kind of accustomed to, whenever we start seeing those scenes begin to happen, the camera fades away into the to not show you what's going to happen, right? And these scenes really go there, and I really appreciated that just as a viewer who has never really seen that on a mainstream platform. How important was that to you? I'm sure you had a lot of discussions going into it, but like, what tell me about the creative decision about it without obviously giving away any spoilers.
Yeah, it was, it was sort of baked into the DNA of my vision for the movie from the beginning, which is, this movie is a celebration of the queer lifestyle. And that includes politically, socially, romantically, and erotically. So I didn't want to do something soft focus. I didn't want to do something unrealistic. I wanted to create romantic scenes or sexual encounters that would be beautiful, but real. And, like you, perhaps, the minute a romantic scene starts, then you go to soft focus, and then you're drifting away. That's not real, and we spent a lot of time working with the actors and with Scott Turner Schofield, our intimacy advisor, about those scenes. And I sort of left it to them to a certain extent. I said, well, here's how the scene starts. Here's where I want it to end. Explore, find things that are comfortable for you to do as human beings, as performers as well. So we spent a lot of time working on those scenes so the actors would feel safe, so they could go to that place. And like, honestly, we've had 100 years of straight sex in mainstream movies. It's about damn time we embrace the joy of queer sex in a mainstream movie.
Absolutely. And again, like you say, like, we are celebrating it in this film and just the depiction of it. But again, this roller coaster of a movie, it just goes one way or the other. I loved it. It was so great to
Oh,
watch.
thank you.
Um, and so kind of once I got to the end of the film, and I think whenever viewers get to the end of the film, it's almost kind of like that Inception style ending where you're left feeling like so many different emotions at once, right? Like, again, I go back to who I'm rooting for, who I'm not rooting for, who was right, who was wrong, all these different emotions. And so was that something that you kind of creatively thought about, like ending it in a way that wasn't necessarily a standard ending
Yep.
without obviously giving away spoilers? And is there anything that like you're hoping viewers maybe take away from it? Obviously, it's the subject matter is what it is, but you also could have just written it to entertain, right? Of like, you don't necessarily need to evoke some sort of like takeaway, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly, the movie has a purpose, and the purpose is empathy and compassion. Our hero at the end of the movie is faced with a choice of what are they going to do? Are they going to go down a road of vengeance and darkness, which is probably the traditional ending to a horror movie, or are they going to take another direction, that toward understanding, taking a higher road? And because my character is a hero, they take the higher road. And I think that's very provocative, and I think it's beautiful, but I think it's important because we live in a world now, particularly as queer people, where our civil rights and our human rights are being questioned on a very fundamental level. So to be able to tell a story where our hero chooses compassion, humanity, and celebrates who they are in a very prideful way, I think is wildly important. The movie to me fails utterly if it is not emotional. If you just have the sensation of, oh, I had a good scare, then go take a roller coaster ride. That's not art. That's not cinema. What cinema can do is give you characters you fall in love with, and you can't help rooting for them and following their stories. And my intention, and I think the cast's intention and everyone's intention, was to try to make a moving human story within the shell of this incredibly entertaining horror movie.
Absolutely. And speaking of the cast, I will say, and I don't know if this is necessarily a spoiler, but it's something I appreciated, so I would just want to talk to you about it. The song, the
Yeah.
big singing break. Talk me through that, the decision, and kind of, I'm sure the rehearsal process had to have been a blast.
It was, yes. At a certain point, important point in the movie, we do a proper song and dance number, and partly it's because I'm a show queen and I own that. And I thought, it's my movie, so if I want a song and dance, I'm going to have it. But also, more importantly, it's like Jordan, our hero, is at a very low point. They have to rediscover their pride and their power. So Pink song Effing Perfect was the song to do that with. And I know how much it would have meant to me when I was a kid to hear someone tell me I was perfect, just the way
Mm.
I was. Uh, the rehearsal for it was unbelievably fun. It was the best day on the set because I got to be Marty Scorsese and Bob Fosse on the same day. So it was, I think all the actors loved that day in particular. And even when I watch the movie now, and I've seen it a lot, obviously, in editing, when that scene comes along, I'm just elated at the joy and the power and the exuberance that queer people can give to the world.
Absolutely. Man, I think about it and it does give me chills thinking about how it is that kind of empowering moment. But it is kind of like, I guess I think of the movie Mother when Kristen Wiig shows up out of nowhere and you're just like, wait, now we've got a comedian in here. And so for this, it was kind of like, okay, there's all this tension building, but we're gonna do a dance number,
Yes,
or
we are.
yeah, and it's fabulous. The whole thing was fabulous. And I gotta say, I can't wait to rewatch it. I can't wait for others to watch it. I'm getting close to my time and this has been great. So I
Oh,
just want
thank
to say
you.
thank you so much. I can't wait to write this and share it with our readers.
Great. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, John. And I will leave the room now and I wish you luck with the rest of your interviews today.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.